In the dim archives of a forgotten Virginia library, sealed transcripts from the 1930s gather dust, pages that could unravel the veil between life and death. These are the suppressed readings of Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet whose visions challenge the boundaries of consciousness, only to be buried by skeptics and institutions fearing their implications. What if the afterlife isn't judgment, but a mirror to the soul's deepest secrets? This is the lost map Cayce charted, hidden from public view until now. Edgar Cayce was no ordinary man. Born in 1877 in rural Kentucky, he lived in an era of rapid industrialization and spiritual awakening. Yet he shunned formal mysticism for a profound personal gift. Without theological training or esoteric robes, Cayce entered self-induced trances during the early 1900s, channeling insights that spanned health remedies to ancient histories. Doctors and scholars flocked to his sessions in Dayton, Ohio, and later Virginia Beach, drawn by his uncanny accuracy, predicting medical breakthroughs years before science caught up. But his most controversial revelations, those probing the soul's journey beyond the grave, were quietly sidelined. The medical establishment dismissed them as fantasy. Religious leaders saw threats to doctrine. These transcripts, recorded by stenographers in hushed hotel rooms and private homes, were locked away, overlooked amid his more palatable healings. Why? Because they suggested death wasn't an end, but a gateway to hidden dimensions of the self. Truths too disruptive for a world clinging to material certainty. At the heart of these forbidden documents lies Cayce's core revelation: the afterlife as an inner odyssey, not a distant heaven or hell, but an unfolding of consciousness through symbolic realms. In trance, his voice would deepen, echoing from some timeless void, describing the soul's departure as a gentle shedding, like a traveler discarding a heavy cloak after a long road. No abrupt void, no eternal sleep. Instead, an immediate surge of liberation as the physical form dissolves, revealing the soul's true essence, pure energy, unbound by time or flesh. Cayce envisioned this transition not as random ascent, but a deliberate passage through astral and planetary spheres, metaphorical layers within the psyche, each reflecting the life once lived. These weren't astronomical voyages. They were psychological trials where unresolved emotions and intentions shape the soul's path. Imagine it, the moment of death stripping away illusions, forcing the spirit to confront its own architecture. As the soul ventures deeper, existential shadows lengthen, pulling at the threads of doubt and desire. Cayce's readings paint the initial astral plane as a misty borderland, a realm of lingering earthly ties, where shadows of fear and attachment cling like fog. Here, souls tethered to material regrets, unforgiven grudges, unquenched cravings, wander in a self-imposed haze, not tormented by fire, but trapped in the echo of their own unrest. It's a psychological limbo, Cayce implied, where the mind's unhealed wounds replay like a haunting reel demanding release before progression. Transitioning onward feels like emerging from a storm into clearer light. If the soul harbors inner radiance, acts of compassion, quests for wisdom, it ascends to higher spheres, each a profound expansion of awareness. These planetary domains, as Cayce detailed in his suppressed sessions, form a symbolic ladder of self-discovery, blending intuition with archetypal depth. Mercury's realm stirs the intellect, a zone for souls who chased knowledge but skirted deeper truths, now compelled to refine thought into genuine insight. Venus unfolds as a harmonious embrace, drawing those who embodied selfless love where forgiveness blooms into eternal connection. Yet contrast sharpens the intrigue. Mars pulses with unresolved strife, a battleground for spirits haunted by inner conflicts, urging them to lay down arms through understanding. Jupiter then elevates to wisdom's vast library, home to teachers and seekers who've integrated life's lessons, fostering growth that ripples across souls. Saturn looms as the stern reflector, confronting karma not as vengeful fate, but as unlearned echoes, debts of harm or neglect demanding honest reckoning. Higher still, Uranus and Neptune dissolve boundaries, revealing the soul's link to a cosmic whole, glimpses of divine orchestration that dissolve the illusion of separation. Pluto marks the threshold, a pivotal crossroads where the soul weighs its evolution, forward into unity or back to Earth for another cycle. This framework deepens the psychological intrigue, positioning death as the ultimate introspective forge. Cayce's visions underscore a haunting tension. Our daily choices, veiled in habit or haste, sculpt not just this life but the landscapes we'll navigate beyond it. No external judge presides. The soul becomes its own tribunal, where hatred breeds isolation and love invites expanse. Reincarnation emerges not as cosmic mandate but voluntary return, a loving opportunity to mend fractures, to evolve consciousness through repeated veils of forgetting. In these overlooked transcripts, Cayce's words carry a chilling immediacy. The afterlife amplifies the self, turning inner whispers into vast realities where denial only prolongs the soul's solitary echo. Yet weaving through these revelations is a speculative thread Cayce hinted at but never fully charted. What if consciousness after death retains fragments of collective human memory, allowing souls to glimpse parallel unlived paths? In this hidden vista, the departed might briefly access echoes of alternate choices, not as regret, but as compassionate wisdom, enriching the soul's tapestry before it integrates into the eternal now. As these sealed readings resurface, one question lingers in the silence. If Edgar Cayce mapped the soul's hidden frontiers, what undiscovered doors within you wait to open at death's threshold? In the shadowed vaults of forgotten archives, a collection of trance-induced transcripts from the early 20th century lies buried. Recordings of Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, whose visions pierced the veil of death itself. Suppressed for decades by skeptics and institutions fearing their radical implications, these forbidden sessions reveal a hidden blueprint of the soul's odyssey, challenging everything we believe about consciousness beyond the grave. Edgar Cayce, born in 1877 in rural Kentucky, emerged as one of history's most enigmatic psychics, entering deep trance states to access what he called the universal mind. From the 1920s through the 1940s, he delivered over 14,000 readings on health history and the afterlife, often while unconscious, on a couch in his Virginia Beach office. Yet, his most profound revelations on death and rebirth were quietly sidelined, overlooked amid controversies, wartime paranoia, and the rise of materialist science that branded his work as delusion. These suppressed transcripts, pieced together from scattered notebooks and private correspondences, were deemed too disruptive, hinting at a conscious eternity that could unravel societal fears of oblivion. Why hide them? Perhaps because they suggested our lives are not random but deliberate threads in an immortal tapestry, guarded by forces unwilling to let the masses glimpse the soul's true autonomy. At the heart of Cayce's forbidden visions lies the Akashic Records, not a dusty library in the ether, but an eternal repository etched into the fabric of spirit, where every whisper of intent, every ripple of choice, endures as indelible vibrations. In his Altered States, Cayce described how the soul, upon shedding its earthly form, awakens to this vast archive, not for divine ledger-keeping, but for intimate self-navigation. Here, karma unfolds not as ironclad retribution, but as a luminous guidepost, illuminating paths of unfinished harmony. The soul reviews its incarnations, discerning the echoes of joy sown and wounds inflicted, charting the next vessel of growth, be it through bloodlines, landscapes, or epochs. No soul drifts aimlessly. Each descent into flesh is a calculated vow, predestined by the very will that now propels it forward, transforming what we call destiny into a forgotten pact, sealed in pre-birth resolve. As the mist of mortality clears, Cayce's revelations plunge deeper into the psyche's uncharted territories, weaving existential dread with profound intrigue. Imagine the disorientation, souls lingering in a bodiless haze, perceiving the world they left, yet untouched by it. Whispers to the living, falling silent, spectral hands grasping at air. This initial fog, what Cayce termed the Hall of Mirrors, traps the unready in a psychological limbo, where denial warps into haunting isolation. For those armored in skepticism or shadowed by unresolved grudges, years, perhaps centuries in our linear reckoning, unfold in this suspended twilight, the mind wrestling with the irrevocable shift. Only acceptance unlocks the gate, forgiving the self's fractures and the world's barbs, allowing the soul to shed its earthly illusions like a chrysalis. Transitioning seamlessly from this inner turmoil, Cayce evoked ethereal escorts, advanced souls, kin from prior lives, or luminous mentors, who emerge not as winged guardians of dogma, but as resonant frequencies enveloping the newcomer in an embrace of subtle radiance. It's a moment of raw vulnerability, the psyche yielding to guidance that feels like rediscovered home by pulling one from solitude into the collective pulse of existence. This welcoming dissolves into the soul's pivotal reckoning, a panoramic immersion where life's tapestry unravels not through cold judgment, but empathetic resonance. Cayce's visions painted it vividly. The departed relive not mere events, but the visceral undercurrents they stirred. The sting of betrayal echoed back as the betrayer's ache, the quiet grace of compassion blooming into shared warmth. Punishment? No, this is alchemy of awareness, forging empathy from the forge of consequence. Heaven and hell, in his cosmology, dissolve into vibrational realms, shadowy voids for souls vibrating in discord, realms of chilling isolation born from lifetimes of division, or ascending spheres where love permeates like breathable light. A conscious harmony for those attuned to unity. These are not distant locales, but extensions of the mind's architecture, sculpted by the frequencies we cultivate in waking hours. Cayce's trance whispers urged a haunting truth. Death merely unmasks the inner worlds we've always inhabited, turning the passage into a mirror reflecting the soul's unspoken authorship. Yet in these reconstructed sessions, one speculative layer emerges, unvoiced in Cayce's documented readings, but echoing their mystic cadence. What if consciousness after death lingers as a fractal echo in the Akashic web, subtly influencing the living through synchronicities, unseen nudges from beyond, weaving the departed back into the dance of incarnation, ensuring no wisdom truly fades? We do not die, Cayce insisted in his final fragmented utterances. We merely remember. But in reclaiming these lost echoes, what forgotten choices might we unearth in our own veiled journeys? Fade in, dimly lit archive room, shadows dancing over yellowed manuscripts and dusty reel-to-reel tapes. A faint hum of an old recorder underscores the narration. Narrator, deep measured voice, echoing slightly as if from a hidden chamber. In the shadowed corners of a long-sealed vault, Buried beneath layers of institutional denial lies a forbidden transcript from the 1940s, a lost recording of Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet captured in trance. Suppressed for decades by those who feared its revelations would shatter the veil between worlds, this hidden archive unveils visions of the afterlife that challenge everything we know about death, consciousness, and the soul's eternal wanderings. What if the dead aren't gone, but watching, choosing, remembering? Soft, ethereal music swells, transitioning to grainy black and white footage of Cayce in repose, eyes closed, as if evoking his altered states. Edgar Cayce was no ordinary man. Born in 1877 in rural Kentucky, he rose to fame in the early 20th century as America's most documented psychic, entering deep trance states to deliver over 14,000, quote one on health, history, and the unseen realms. But while his medical insights gained reluctant acceptance, his prophecies on the soul's journey beyond death were deemed too radical, too disruptive. Skeptics labeled them delusions. Religious authorities buried them as heresy. These suppressed sessions, unearthed only recently from private collections, reveal a mystic who peered into the energetic undercurrents of existence, describing death not as an end, but as a threshold to hidden truths, visions that were overlooked, or worse, deliberately hidden, lest they ignite a revolution in human understanding. Cut to animated ethereal visions. Swirling lights, soul-like figures in luminous halls, building tension with a low pulsing drone. At the heart of Cayce's core revelation lies the soul's odyssey after the body fades. In his trance-induced visions, he painted the afterlife as a dynamic forge of consciousness, far from the static heavens or hells of dogma. Death, he insisted, strips away the ego's illusions, ushering the soul into a reflective interlude, a quote two, an energetic sanctuary where, guided by luminous mentors, it confronts the unfinished threads of its earthly tapestry. Here, no divine tribunal condemns. Instead, the soul reviews its incarnations through the lens of compassion, questioning not quote three, but quote four, poverty, loss, illness. These are not curses, but self-chosen crucibles for awakening dormant potentials. Empathy forged in suffering, resilience born from grief, love deepened by absence. Yet Cayce's insights delve deeper into psychological shadows. Some souls, he revealed in these forbidden dialogues, linger in limbo, ensnared by unresolved attachments, not as spectral hauntings, but as psychic resonances, echoes that manifest as uncanny presences, dream visitations, or the chill that clings to a deathbed room. These trapped essences, he warned, stem from words unspoken, forgiveness withheld, bonds unsevered. In his altered states, Cayce urged the living to release these ties, to voice love before the veil thickens, for the fear of oblivion binds both sides of the divide. Imagine the existential weight, your departed loved one, not at peace, but hovering as an unfinished whisper, compelling you to question the fragility of your own consciousness. Smooth dissolve to starry cosmos, souls ascending like sparks, music lifting to a contemplative hum. Expanding on these visions, Cayce wove a philosophical tapestry of reincarnation as grace, not retribution, a carousel of opportunities where each death pauses the soul's curriculum, allowing preparation for the next embodiment. Eternity, in his view, is a patient teacher, devoid of judgment, rich with lessons in giving and receiving love. The soul emerges wiser, its prior understandings amplifying the depth of future trials. But beneath this lies a profound intrigue, the mechanics of forgetting and remembering. Life's traumas and bodily fears veil the soul's innate knowing, yet glitches pierce through. Déjà vu is ancestral recall, a child's eerie precognition, tears for unfamiliar landscapes. These are fractures in the illusion, reminders that we are souls donning temporary forms, not bodies harboring fleeting spirits. Pause, screen glitches, like a corrupted tape, voice lowers to an intimate whisper, heightening mystery. And in a speculative layer drawn from the edges of Cayce's trance narratives, though never fully articulated in his known readings, consider this. After death, consciousness may not merely persist, but evolve into a multidimensional weave, splintering to influence multiple lives at once, as if one soul's light scatters to illuminate paths it once walked, fostering a collective awakening across the veil. Such a notion amplifies the hidden knowledge, suggesting our inner whispers of guidance might be our own future selves, echoing from beyond. Final transition. Soft glow envelops the screen. Narration slows, leaving a resonant silence. Cayce wasn't a cloistered philosopher or tenured scholar. He was an unassuming Christian who, through prayer and dreamlike reveries, tapped forbidden streams of insight. His map of the beyond is no rigid atlas, but an inner compass of experience and silence, pointing to remembrance as the true quest. Not perfection, but reclaiming the light we've obscured. Reincarnation, then, is no cycle of doom, but a divine reprieve, granting chances to choose love amid the chaos. Every soul, he envisioned, culminates not in dissolution, but reunion with the source. Like a ray merging back into the sun, form yielding to essence, incarnation ceasing when consciousness embodies pure love, that boundless state beyond emotion, the core of all seeking. In these suppressed words, there is no moralizing. There's only silence and depth, a call to live so the soul would cherish the memory. Life after death is not the finish, it's preparation. Edgar Cayce said, quote 5. And the more he understood in the previous one, the deeper the next lesson will be. After the stage of reflection, when the soul sees its past life, not from the perspective of ego, but from the perspective of love, it does not simply rest. It prepares for the next journey, for the new incarnation. Yes, Cayce spoke about reincarnation, but not as punishment, as opportunity. Each life is a chance. Each death is a pause between them, an eternity which does not judge but teaches. Fade out, the archive door creaks shut, leaving one question hanging in the ether. What forgotten echo of your soul is calling you home right now? In the shadowed vaults of a forgotten Virginia archive, a single reel of audio tape lay buried for decades, sealed away after Edgar Cayce's death in 1945. Recorded in one of his deepest trance states, this lost session whispered revelations about the veil between worlds that the establishment deemed too dangerous to unveil. What if the psychic known as the sleeping prophet had mapped not just the body's ailments, but the soul's final journey? A journey suppressed, lest it shatter our illusions of mortality. Edgar Cayce, born in 1877 near Hopkinsville, Kentucky, was no ordinary man. Afflicted by throat paralysis as a boy, he discovered his gift in trance-induced readings, entering altered states where he diagnosed the invisible and foresaw the unseen. Over 14,000 sessions documented ailments, prophecies, and ancient mysteries, but his explorations into the afterlife were often sidelined, dismissed by skeptics as hallucinations, or quietly archived by his followers to avoid scandal in an era gripped by scientific rationalism. These hidden transcripts, unearthed only recently, reveal Cayce not as a fortune teller, but as a reluctant oracle peeling back the layers of consciousness itself. Why were they concealed? Perhaps because they challenge the rigid doctrines of death, suggesting that what lies beyond is not judgment or oblivion, but a profound evolution of the self. As the tape crackles to life in our reconstruction, Cayce's voice, calm, ethereal, emerges from the ether. The core of his vision unfolds not as a geography of ghosts, but as an ascent through veils of awareness. Imagine the soul unburdened by flesh, drifting not to distant realms but inward to thresholds of understanding. Heaven and hell dissolve into mirages. In their place, gradients of light, where the mind confronts its own echoes. Fear gives way to a gentle reckoning, guided not by divine wrath, but by the quiet force of compassion. Pain, once a torment, transforms into a teacher, its scars illuminating the path. Paradise? No glittering reward awaits. Instead, a homecoming to the eternal spark we carried from the stars, now fully remembered. Fade in now to the heart of this philosophical labyrinth, where Cayce's insights twist the psyche like a dream unraveling. Death, he implied, is no rupture, but a refinement, a psychological shedding where the ego frays and the true self emerges. Consciousness, in his view, is the eternal navigator, shifting from the narrow tunnel of earthly desires to vast oceans of interconnected being. Here, love is no fleeting emotion, but the alchemical key, an act of forgiveness that dissolves grudges, a pause of gratitude that aligns the spirit, a gesture of care that echoes across dimensions. Each choice in life, Cayce suggested, etches the soul's map, turning mundane moments into rehearsals for transcendence. Yet this raises a haunting tension. What if our deepest regrets are not punished, but replayed in vivid review, forcing us to relive through the eyes of those we've wounded? In these suppressed words, death becomes a mirror, reflecting not our flaws, but our untapped potential. A psychological odyssey where hidden truths about the self demand confrontation. And yet, delving deeper into Cayce's forbidden revelations, one speculative thread lingers unspoken in the transcripts, but resonates with his cosmic worldview. What if consciousness after death does not merely persist, but fractals outward, merging with a collective dreamscape where individual souls glimpse alternate lives, unlived? In this state, the boundaries of _7_ blur, allowing echoes of forgotten incarnations to whisper guidance, urging the spirit toward unity with the infinite intelligence that birthed the universe. As the tape winds down, Cayce's reconstructed whisper lingers. A soul attuned to love fears no end, for it has already brushed the infinite. But in this hidden archive, one question endures. What voices from the other side are calling to you unheard?